All right, let's get right into it. We're going to break down the unique mindset of Google's co-founder, Sergey Brin, and how he approaches, well, pretty much everything. This simple idea, it really gets to the core of what made Google so different right from the get-go. See, they weren't built to just crank out profits every quarter. No, they were obsessed with solving a huge, messy problem. How do you organize all the information in the entire world? So, what does happen when a couple of academics, not seasoned executives, try to build a company? Well, to really get why Google is what it is today, you have to go back to the beginning. Their way of thinking wasn't cooked up in some boardroom, it came from somewhere totally different. And Sergey Brin's background is a huge piece of that puzzle. Yeah, Brin was just a different kind of founder. His whole approach wasn't shaped by some MBA program. It was forged in places that valued thinking for yourself, getting back to basics, instead of just following the established rules. Just look at this background. It's such a fascinating mix. He went to Montessori schools, right? Which are all about teaching you to think independently. His family actually immigrated from Moscow, where they faced real discrimination, which you can imagine instills a healthy dose of questioning authority. Plus, his dad was a math professor, so he grew up surrounded by logic and first principles. And yeah, of course, no MBA. That's almost a classic part of the disruptive founder's story, isn't it? And this wasn't just some theory from the outside looking in. His own co-founder, Larry Page, pointed directly to this background. He said it was that exact training that taught them not to follow rules, to question everything. They weren't playing by the existing business playbook. They were fundamentally questioning why the playbook existed in the first place. So this unique mindset, it led them to totally rethink the entire problem of web search. They weren't interested in just building a slightly better, slightly faster version of what was already out there. No, they went all the way back to square one. In this right here, this is the absolute core of the Sergey Brin blueprint. We're talking about first principles thinking. Now, this isn't about taking something that already exists and just making it better. It's about breaking a problem down to its most basic, fundamental truths, the stuff you know for sure is true, and then building your solution up from there, almost like you're starting from a blank slate. And here's the perfect example of how that worked. The old way of thinking about web search was pretty simple, right? The assumption was, hey, if a keyword shows up a bunch of times on a page, that page must be important. But Brin and Page just completely sidestepped that. They asked a more fundamental question. How does authority actually work in the real world? Well, it works through citations, and that was the light bulb moment. They realized a link from one website to another is basically a vote, a citation. That was the first principle, and that one idea, it changed absolutely everything. Okay, so this way of thinking, it wasn't just for writing code or designing algorithms. It became the very DNA of the company they built. They didn't just stop at the product. They applied this first principles thinking to the company itself. So instead of just copying the corporate structure of, IBM or Microsoft, they asked a basic question. What kind of environment do you need to build to get constant innovation, not just one lucky hit? And this is what they came up with. They literally built a system designed to attract more people who thought just like them. They'd hire brilliant grads straight out of school, people who weren't bogged down with bad habits from other corporations. They created this culture of extreme openness, where the best ideas could win no matter where they came from. And of course, the legendary 20% time, where engineers could just mess around with their own projects. That one bet gave us things like AdSense and Google News. Just incredible. So when it came time to go public in 2004, they basically wrote all this down. They put it in their letter to investors. But honestly, it reads less like a stuffy financial document and more like an owner's manual for how to disrupt everything. I mean, check this out. This was literally the first line of their S-1 filing. Can you imagine being a Wall Street investor in 2004 and reading that? Google is not a conventional company. We do not intend to become one. It's just so direct, so unapologetic. It's a mission statement. We're not playing your game. And then they followed it up with this gem, a total rejection of the quarterly earnings rat race that Wall Street is obsessed with. They were basically telling investors up front, look, if you're looking for smooth, predictable profits every 3 months, this isn't the company for you. We are here to make huge, long-term bets. And this right here, this was basically them giving themselves a public license to get weird, to be strange. This is the sentence that gave them the freedom to pour money into things that sounded like pure science fiction back then. We're talking self-driving cars, deep AI research, the kind of speculative bets that ended up giving us stuff we can't live without today, like Google Maps. So, this long term view, this obsession with tackling huge fundamental problems, it's still what drives Sergey Brin today. It goes way, way beyond just web search now. Just look at what he's focused on now. He's still using that same first principles approach, but on these massive world changing challenges. He's got LTA research, which is trying to bring back giant clean airships for things like logistics and disaster relief. He's pouring money into accelerating Parkinson's research through his ASAP initiative, which is deeply personal for him. And get this, he actually went back to a hands on coding role to help push the limits on Google's big AI project, Gemini. And that really brings us to the most important takeaway here. The real, durable advantage that Google built wasn't just a search engine. It was the system for thinking that could create the search engine and then create the next thing and the next. It's like they build an operating system for solving impossible problems, all based on these first principles. So that leaves us with a really powerful question, not just for business, but for anything we do. Are you just trying to build a single solution to a single problem? Or are you building a system for thinking that can solve problem after problem? Are we just making tiny improvements to what's already here, or do we have the guts to tear it all down to its fundamental truths and build something completely new?